Hey y'all, special treat today. We have the infamous notorious Derrick Gunn from Philadelphia, reporter, journalist for the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, does a lot of Philadelphia Eagles reporting. Derrick, go ahead and tell the people about yourself for the people who aren't big Philadelphia sports nerds like myself.
Wait, did you start off by saying infamous?
Yes.
Did I hear correctly, infamous? So that means I'm still on America's Most Wanted list. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
The notorious.
Hey, look. I just tell people, when people come up to me and they'll ask me, "Hey, don't I know you?" And I'll tell them, "Well, if you see me on America's Most Wanted," and they look at me for a minute and go, "Oh, you just kidding?" I said, "No." I said, here's what I want you to do. If you turn me in, all I'm asking for is 20%. You can keep the 80, just give me 20. That's all I'm saying. That's all. And people look at me and then they go, "Wait a minute, I know who you are now." So yeah, I try to throw people off, but I'm Derrick Gunn. I've been in TV broadcasting and radio broadcasting for over 4 decades. For the last 24 plus years, I've covered the Philadelphia Eagles. In my career, I've covered the Chargers, the Packers, the Steelers, and the Eagles, as well as many other sports. I've worked in San Diego, my hometown, Milwaukee, Pittsburgh, and now in Philadelphia. I've been blessed to cover some of the greatest athletes that we've ever had the privilege to watch and admire. Names like Julius Erving, Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray Leonard, Olympic athletes like Eric Heiden, who's a speed skater. The list goes on and on, from basketball, football, baseball, track, tennis. I've been blessed. Billie Jean King I've interviewed. I've had a blessed career, and now I work for myself independently. And in the Philadelphia market, I've worked for CBS Channel 3 TV. I've also worked for 97.5 ESPN Radio, the JAKIB Media YouTube network, and I do my own podcast called Gun on One, which is a football-heavy podcast. But we do other interviews, like my boy DJ Jazzy Jeff is a good friend of mine. And I do college basketball. Joe Lunardi, who is called the bracketologist of college basketball. So I've had a well-rounded career, still kicking. You can't get rid of me yet. You can't get rid of the infamous D Gun yet. I'm still rolling.
No, we're not looking forward to it at all. Actually, if you guys are ever, if you're another team's fan or an Eagles fan, if you're looking for the latest information, whenever the Eagles have a questionable player or a doubtful player, I'm always like, D-Gun's got it. I'm like, I keep refreshing.
That's right. I keep stirring the pot, baby. A lot of times they don't want me to stir the pot, but I stir the pot when I can.
You got to. Well, I hope you're getting some of this awesome weather today, but thank you for taking some of the time to come and talk with me about a little birds and some sports.
Yeah. It's been so cold here. It jumped up to 62 degrees today. So I was outside working on my tan earlier today. I feel a little pale, so I had to go outside and just kind of, tan it up a little bit. Get back, get that summer mode a couple months early.
I've been getting back out there jogging. I'm looking forward to being back. It's gonna feel like a regular. I think this year I got a good feeling this year will be back to normal. Somewhat.
Oh, you're a jogger?
Yeah, I'm a jogger.
Oh, see, I like to jog too, from my couch to my refrigerator. I'm a big jogger when it comes to that. Oh yeah.
I still got that wide receiver in me from high school. So,
well, see, I used to be a running back, and I've become an offensive lineman now. So my gait's a little bit slower than it used to be. The mind says go, and the body says no. So
Stoutland,
I got to pace it. Now, Stoutland can't help me anymore. Jeff Stoutland cannot help me anymore. Jeff Stoutland is a miracle worker when it comes to working with offensive linemen. He can't help D Gun anymore, man. I'm not down in the valley yet, but I'm over the hill. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So thinking back to the beginning of the season, I wrote a piece in this about this in the Liberty Line, but thinking back to the beginning of the season, I was thinking maybe we weren't I didn't think that the Eagles were going to be a playoff team, to where they ended up. Where, if you were their teacher, what would their letter grade be on the test?
I'd have to give them a B+ for the ability to adapt and adjust on the fly and change the whole complexion of this season. Obviously Nick Sirianni had his own game plan going in terms of how he wanted his offense structured. But when you looked at the first 5-6 games of the season, he really didn't have the personnel to run what he wanted to run. and people in Philadelphia were screaming for run the football more. So he finally listened in Detroit, and they just freight trained the Detroit Lions. And you're thinking, okay, stroke of luck. And then he kept doing it and kept doing it. And over the span of the next 6-7 games, he ran right through the number 5, the number 6, and the number 1 defenses in the National Football League. And all of a sudden, they emerged as the top running team of the football in the NFL, and found a way to secure the number 7 seed for the playoffs. So, because it's a team with a lot of deficiencies as we look back on the season, yet a team that was able to switch it, flip the script a little bit on the fly and change its season around and finish with a 9-8 record. It ended more promising than it began. So, I'm going to stick with like a solid B+ for what they did. I wasn't pleased with the overall personnel on either side of the football, but they were good enough. And, people might say, hey, look, you beat a bunch of teams that were bottom dwellers in the league. But you know what? The bottom line is if they didn't beat those teams, we would have been lambasting them for the whole season, not being able to beat those bottom teams. Yes. So you beat the teams you had to beat to elevate yourself to get to the playoff status, and that's exactly what they did.
That's absolutely right. And the schedule gods didn't do them any favors, because all of the really good teams and the possibilities for impressive victories were all front loaded when this team had no idea who they really were. You had a rookie head coach, a rookie defensive coordinator. So I had that kind of grade in I was leaning more towards B-, but I'm surprised. I'm not against it. Obviously the ultimate goal is an A+, but there's no way in the world that this team was going to win the Super Bowl this year.
No. And, if you look at both teams that were the 7 seeds in the playoffs, you could tell that those 7 seeds were not playoff caliber teams. But because the NFL is all about money and generating money, there were still big draws just to see these teams get in. You had 2 extra teams in the playoffs. There's more money for those teams and the league itself. So I understand what the league is doing in terms of expanding and giving more teams an opportunity to get in there and to play. But this Philadelphia Eagles team, you could tell it's light years difference between the teams that they were beating in the second half of the season and the teams they were losing to in the first half of the season. And, of course, the team that got blasted by Tampa Bay in the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I emphasize the word blasted.
Because the final score was 31-15, but that wasn't the score.
No. Just like when people say, well, they made a game of it when they lost to Tampa Bay in the season 28-22. Man, Tampa Bay pumped the brakes in that game. They let the Eagles back in that game. They took the foot off the pedal and made the game a lot closer. Let's call it what it is. The Eagles made a gallant effort trying to come back, and who knows? Even a blind squirrel finds an acorn every now and then. They might have got a play that could have got them over the hump in that game, but they didn't. Tampa Bay has much superior talent to this Eagles team, and it showed in both games.
Absolutely. So that's why, I said something about this earlier today. Obviously, we have the NFL MVP, and I don't really think it's a debate. I don't think it's a big, lively debate who this year's MVP should be. But I think that they really should re-examine how you go about determining the NFL MVP, because like you said, you got 14 out of 32 teams basically making the playoffs. And soon we might be at a place where we've got where we've got literally half of the team, 16 out of 32. I think that in all sports, really, the MVP discussion should include your playoff performance. That's not where it is, but what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that it should remain a regular season award and then have a final Super Bowl MVP?
You know what? You bring up a good point, but I fall under the category of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's the way it's been for a long time. The MVP has always been based on regular season performance. So why change it now? I think, the game of football has changed so much in terms of what you can and what you cannot do anymore in the NFL. I think it's an embarrassment. The pass interference call has become an embarrassment in the NFL. The fact that the quarterbacks are like Teflon, you can barely touch them anymore. Yep. It's almost like glorified flag football. And, I understand the league. I applaud the league in the terms of trying to make sure their players get out of the game a lot healthier, both physically and more importantly, mentally, than we've seen players come out of the game in decades past. I understand that, but you've taken away certain elements of the game. You know, defensive players don't even know what the strike zone is anymore.
Right.
You know, they lower a shoulder to try to make a strike, and the ball carrier also lowers his
Yep.
shoulder simultaneously, which has caused a lot of head injuries.
Yep.
And then they called, you know, the defensive player gets called.
Yep.
You know, so what's the defensive player supposed to do anymore in terms of trying to bring down, you know, the ball carrier? You know, so the rule needs to be tweaked a little bit more. To what degree, I don't know, but the league and people I've talked to in the league feel it still has to be tweaked and refined a little bit.
Absolutely. And I don't know how you properly regulate that, because you're exactly right, and you played running back, so that's very fair of you to say, because that's what I watch all the time. I watch, you know, you see a Derrick Henry clearly lower the shoulder, clearly bring the crown of his helmet down. It's never ever called.
No.
But guys running over the middle, catching a drag route, catching a slant, they get pummeled, and then, or maybe even lightly tapped in a lot of cases, not even catch the ball, but the team gets a first down.
Well, you know, you look at a guy like, I'm glad you brought up Derrick Henry. You look at this guy. This guy's 250 pounds and can run away from everybody in the National Football League. And anybody, once he gets past the interior, you know, it's DBs between him and the goal line. And DBs, you know, don't want to be on his highlight reel every week, which they have been for the last few years. Yeah. I mean, what are you supposed to do to tackle a man like that? First of all, I think every time I watch defenders tackle now, once you get to the secondary and even linebackers, I've never understood why you're trying to tackle a big man up high around his shoulders. It doesn't work like that, especially when he has a head of steam. We were always taught, you know, you get low and take him out at the knees, you know. Yep. And all of these guys are now trying to tackle guys up around the shoulders. The next thing you know, they're slipping through tackles, they're breaking tackles, or basically they're planting a stiff arm in your face and putting you on their highlight reel. So I think that's one of the biggest problems in terms of how defenders try to approach some of these guys. But, you know, when a Derrick Henry lowers his shoulder, he's obviously going to get the call in his favor. So you've shrunk the strike zone for defenders even more so now, to the point where these guys are getting hurt more than they ever have before. So basically, defensive players are like, you know, they don't give a you know what about us on defense. It's all about the offense. You know, so you got a lot of angry defensive players out there.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about grades earlier. What are you going to give Jalen Hurts?
With Jalen, I'm going to stick with a solid C++. And I've gone on record on a number of platforms before, and I'll say it again. I think he's a great athlete playing quarterback, but he has not developed into a legitimate NFL quarterback yet. He still needs to work on his arm strength, although I don't think his arm strength is ever going to improve much. But he can improve on his intermediate accuracy a lot more. He needs to improve on reading a defense. I think he sticks on a primary target too much. A lot of times he missed second and third receivers that were wide open because he doesn't survey the field enough. I think he steps out of the pocket too soon sometimes and takes off the run a little bit sooner than he should, instead of being a little bit more patient in the pocket. Now, granted, he's been under two head coaches and two different offensive coordinators in a span of 2 years of his NFL career. And, you know, he had mentioned during the season, the latter part of the season, you know, ever since his days at Alabama, he's had a different head coach and a different offensive coordinator every year. You know, so I understand, but at this level now, he's going into year number 2 under Nick Sirianni. I expect his game to be a lot more fluid. I expect Sirianni to whittle down the playbook even more so to play to his strengths and make him a much better quarterback / athlete in his second year in Sirianni's scheme.
Absolutely. So, a lot of times I feel like he would have a clean pocket and I'd be watching the game, and it's easy to be sitting on your couch,
right.
You know, having your favorite, you know, drink, more alcoholic drink. Oh, he's open. But there were a lot of times where guys were clearly, if he had just waited a half a second, and the anticipatory throwing is really where I want to see him take a step next season. Like that throw to Greg Ward in the Washington game, the first Washington game in Philly, the back shoulder one close to the pylon. I was like, yes, that's what I needed to see. I think the arm strength, it's really hard to improve arm strength.
Yeah.
But you can improve your anticipation. You can improve your reading of the defense.
Well, considering how infrequent he got a chance to play with Greg Ward, when you get that back shoulder throw down, and nobody in the game does it better than Aaron Rodgers and
Oof.
Devontae Adams. It's
Yes.
unstoppable when you watch those two do it. But that comes with time and chemistry. And again, Greg Ward didn't get many looks the first half of the season. Greg Ward wasn't even implemented into the offense until like the second half of the season. So you have that infrequent combination there. Devontae Smith was his guy, and understandable, why that happened. And I still think he didn't go to Devontae enough in a lot of cases. And you talk about the accuracy. Look at how many guys he missed that he threw to that were wide open in a lot of cases. He overthrew, underthrew, threw behind guys. And that's why I said initially off the top that he needs to work on that accuracy a little bit more, and not just from a stationary position, but when he's on the move. I think he's a better quarterback when he's moving more so than when he's standing in the pocket. The same thing I said about Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz obviously is a much taller quarterback who can see over, the trenches. But I always thought Carson Wentz was a much better quarterback when he was moving, more so than he was as a stationary position. And I think that's what Nick Sirianni and the offensive crew needs to do a little bit more with, Jalen Hurts. Get him out of the pocket, let him float out, and let him throw on the run. Because even if he doesn't throw, once he gets out of that pocket, outside containment, meaning a linebacker or a corner, is going to peek at him because they know he's capable of stepping up and running and picking up big chunks of real estate. And when they take one eye off the guy they're covering, that's when that guy's able to shake free. So that's why I say, get Jalen out of the pocket a little bit more and make his overall game that much more effective.
Do you think adding a Calvin Ridley would drastically improve that? Having it's hard for me as somebody who's played a little bit of quarterback to really feel like that he really had options to really trust other than Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith. Do you think that having targets that he can trust, just that alone, like a Calvin Ridley, would make a difference, or is it more so in Jalen's favor? And do you think that the Calvin Ridley thing is a real idea to even explore for Eagles fans?
Well, when you consider that the Eagles, they got rid of Zach Ertz, they're coming out from under the dark cloud that was the Carson Wentz salary cap restraint. The salary cap could be up to $200 million this year, which will give them more room to play. We all know Howie Roseman does a much better job in terms of getting free agents in here than he does in terms of drafting players, although I will give him his props. I thought his 2021 draft class was a very good class when you look at how it was utilized and how the productivity helped this team out to do a lot of different things. But go
ahead. Sorry, Derek.
No, but when you talk about bringing Calvin Ridley in here, you have to take into consideration how much would it take to get him here. What would it take to get a Calvin Ridley here? Are you willing to give up 2 or your 3 first-round picks if you're going to make a trade for a Calvin Ridley? How much money are you willing to give him in terms of being if he's a free agent? How much money are you willing to give him that will kind of squeeze some other areas that you desperately need to address in terms of free agency? So, I would love to see a Calvin Ridley along with Devonta Smith, and a Quez Watkins as Quez Watkins continues to grow. But you have to be smart about this. And, we've chastised Howie Roseman for a lot of things in Philadelphia in terms of moves that he's made or moves that we thought he should have made but did not. But what Howie Roseman is, he's one of the smartest guys out there in terms of structuring his cap money and using his cap money to the best of this team's ability. So, it's the hot thing to talk about now, bringing a Calvin Ridley in here, but there's a lot to consider if you decide to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the biggest need on this team, single need on this team, is pass rusher. I think we really weren't getting any kind of pressure on the quarterback. Josh Sweat had some solid games. Definitely Javon Hargrave on the early portion of the season, but we did not. I mean, we haven't had a true kind of game changing, and all due respect to Brandon Graham, who I love and who will always be a Philly legend. But I think Brandon Graham is a better all around defensive end who's able to stop the run, who does rush the passer well. But we haven't had somebody like Trent Cole in a long time.
Well, when you look at a Brandon Graham compared to a Josh Sweat, the difference is experience. Josh Sweat is just starting to come into his own. Brandon Graham has been around the block a few times. And so he knows all the little nuances in terms of trying to get an advantage against the guys he's lined up across from. Josh Sweat has a lot of potential. My concern with Brandon Graham, and as you know, Brandon Graham's my guy. He and I are really close.
Oh, yeah.
My concern with him is now he's 33, pushing 34. He's coming off a major injury, that Achilles injury. And as you get older, it takes a little bit longer to heal. How effective will Brandon Graham be coming off that injury in 2022? Now, as Howie Roseman has said, there is a place for Brandon Graham in this defense. Jonathan Gannon, the defensive coordinator, likes to rotate his defensive linemen. He doesn't like to just go with 4 defensive linemen. He likes to have that rotation, which is a smart thing, and which is what a lot of teams are doing in the National Football League. But hopefully what Brandon has just gone through won't affect his explosiveness and his ability to get the upper hand against offensive tackles coming up in 2022.
I mean, after the season, and I'm sure Kerrigan's a great guy, but after the season that Kerrigan just had, it's really difficult to envision that Brandon Graham will ever, be less of an impact player than what we got out of Kerrigan this year.
Kerrigan, nice to know you. Goodbye. You out. You got to go. You got to go. You ain't got to leave, but you got to get up out of here, brother. You got to go. Ryan Kerrigan, that's why Washington gave up on him. When Ron Rivera gives up on a defensive player, that's a red flag right there. And if you notice the last year he played in Washington, he didn't even start, because of the way those other guys, young guys, were playing. So I understand, Ryan Kerrigan came here because he was cheap. The Eagles are cash-strapped in a lot of ways. But Ryan Kerrigan is not the player that he was, and it showed in most cases. Now, he played better the last couple of games of the season, but still, you got to get rid of that money, free up that cap money, and move on and get somebody younger, get some fresher legs in here.
I think he had more sacks in that single playoff game against the Bucs than he had all year. Season.
Yes, exactly. He had more tackles for that matter. I thought Ryan Kerrigan was in a witness protection program for most of the season because, he'd be out on the field, but he'd walk off the field. The only guy's uniform didn't seem to be dirty. I hate to say that, but such is the case. And I've always been a big fan. I have my favorite teams, but I'm a fan of great players.
Yep.
And at one point of his career, Ryan Kerrigan was a great player.
Yes.
But you know what? Father Time is undefeated, and it showed in terms of his play in 2021.
No question. So are you a believer that with an improved pass rush, Jonathan Gannon being able to pick up the players that he wants in free agency through the draft or whatever, do you think that that'll improve the scheme, or do you think Jonathan Gannon's got a heavy lift this offseason to really retool his system?
Well, I'm not sure of anything with Jonathan Gannon. He caught me off guard early in the season when he said, he doesn't have a scheme, he has a philosophy. And I'm like, what the heck is he talking about? What do you mean you don't have a scheme? Your philosophy, because your philosophy wasn't working against the better teams in the National Football League. Your philosophy got exposed against better teams in the National Football League. So I don't know if better players is going to make his overall defense better unless he changes. I still think he needs to attack more. I thought the Eagles defense front seven didn't attack quarterbacks enough. You let quarterbacks stand there and get too comfortable in a lot of cases. You beat up on quarterbacks who shouldn't even be in the league in the latter part of the season. But, for the most part, against better competition, you got to bring your A game, man. And he kept bringing a C plus B minus game in terms of attacking quarterbacks. So I don't know. I honestly sit here right now and don't know if it's Jonathan Gannon's philosophy or it was the fact that he lacked personnel in certain areas to do certain things he wanted to do. So we're going to find out with the free agency coming up in March, coupled with the upcoming draft. If he gets that collection of better players, we're going to find out exactly what Jonathan Gannon is or is not.
Well, I hope we find. I hope that better players will improve because, it was very frustrating that the Saints game. I was like the lady from Delco. I think her name's Catherine or Katie from Delco, who was like, because that's a game where we should have kept running there.
Right.
He just played so off so often. I mean, the Chargers game's another example of just at his late game defensive play calling. probably cost us that game.
I think he shows too much respect for better quarterbacks in the National Football League. And when you have your DBs giving that kind of cushion to wide receivers instead of playing more bump and run and man to man against some of these guys, hey, even I could go out and catch 3 or 4 5-yard quick slants, 5-yard in type routes. I might not last more than a series, but I think I can get at least 3 catches a game for maybe like 15 yards.
Absolutely.
The speed is not there anymore, but I think I still got the hands. I can catch the ball and get down real quick and not take a direct shot. I'm not trying to be in anybody's emergency room. So
the way that the league is calling it and the way that Gannon's calling defense, you're not in danger of getting hit. So you don't have to, once you come up off the line, you don't have to think about that.
That's right. 3 steps, quick out, get out of bounds. 3 steps, quick in, get down before you get tattooed. That's my philosophy.
Oh my gosh. So maybe some guys who can do more than do 3-step slant, get down. We're gonna run through a quick lightning round of some potential wide receivers.
Okay.
I agree with you. The biggest needs are obviously, I think very much so, we need to improve at the safety position, at the defensive end position, or pass rusher. But wide receivers, because it's the flavor of the week.
Linebackers, man. Hey, that linebacking crew was not just a job; it was an adventure in a lot of cases. Woo!
So
Man.
some wide receivers that are being discussed right now. Would you, if we had the opportunity to get Allen Robinson or DJ Chark, which way are you going there?
I like Allen Robinson. I think he got lost in the shuffle in Chicago's offense. I think he's a quality receiver. He has that burst. He can get separation. He's physical. He's elusive. Unfortunately for him, he had an off year because, he was playing with a rookie quarterback, and Chicago's offense was simply abysmal. But if you're going to twist my arm between those two, as much as I like DJ Clark, he was coming off an injury. But I'll take Allen Robinson in that case.
Okay. Yeah, I'm probably going the same way.
Yeah.
I think we get an opportunity to kind of run back the same kind of dynamic that we had with Alshon Jeffrey. Should we get that back? He come from Chicago, big receiver with strong hands.
Right.
And I think he's got a way longer ability to play for longer in Philadelphia and have some good years.
Right.
Probably never going to be the best receiver in the league, but
but a great compliment.
Yes, very good. What about Michael Gallup, or probably at a cheaper price, T.Y. Hilton?
I've been a big fan of Michael Gallup ever since he came out of Colorado State. And the first year I watched him play with the Cowboys, I said, wow, this kid has potential. His biggest downside is the fact he's always been overshadowed by a bigger name in Dallas. And, of course, he got injured this year and lost a good portion of the season. But I think Michael Gallup would be a great complement to this Eagles offense. Quick twitch, separation, great hands, and he can separate. He can turn on. If he gets behind you, you're not going to catch him from behind. He's not the biggest receiver out there, but he's a tough kid. I like his game. I think you put him along with the Devontae Smith, and I think you have a great 1-2 combination. I'm still not sold yet on Devontae Smith being a true number 1 for the Eagles. I think he's a 1/2.
Okay.
But if you can get a guy like a Michael Gallup in there, they're interchangeable parts, and I think that makes that offense, in terms of the passing game, that much more lethal.
So you're thinking of Devontae's kind of peak is around like peak Jeremy Maclin, where it's like he's really good, but should he be considered in that number 1 or best receiver in the league category? And the answer would be no.
Yeah, but I think with Devontae, I think he needs to add on just a little bit more body weight. It needs to get a little bit more physical. As you saw in the Tampa Bay game, he couldn't get separation when the Bucs DB started locking him up in a lot of cases. You just got to get a little bit more physical in that regard. And that comes with time. That's not a knock against him. When you consider he broke Deshaun Jackson's rookie receiving yard record, and he didn't get the ball as much as he should have. He could have easily been a 1,000-yard receiver in 2021. And I think his overall upside is incredible. I think he's going to have a long, very profitable career in the National Football League. But I just think he has minor things he needs to work on. And first and foremost, he'll tell you that as well. He came from basically a pro football system down in Alabama, and you don't make him any tougher, any better than you come out of Alabama's program. But there's still some things he can work on to get a little bit better, and I know he will.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm excited about him. I think he's got the right kind of demeanor about
Right.
himself.
Right.
Good leader, good kind of guy you want on the team. Now, these next two, I don't think are going to be Philadelphia Eagles
Right.
that I'm going to ask you about, but these are dream scenario people. Let's say Chris Godwin and Devontae Adams are considering coming to Philly. Who do you think would be a better fit? Who do you think you would like to see more in Midnight Green?
Well, I would say Devontae Adams, basically because I'm from the great state of Wisconsin. So, I know Packers history well. Devontae Adams, hands down, is the best route runner in the game today. But he's gone on record saying he wants to be the highest paid receiver in the National Football League. And who's to argue with that when you look at the numbers he's put up and the big catches he's made over the last 3 or 4 years? I don't think he would be a fit here because he would cost the Eagles too much to get him here. And the Eagles have so many other needs they need to fill. When you look at the other one, Chris Godwin is from Delaware, which is where I live here in Delaware. Great receiver. Unfortunately for him, he's coming off an injury as well. I fully expect him to be back at full strength. I love a Chris Godwin here. Chris Godwin is a guy who's going to cost you some money, but he's not going to cost you out of the market type money. Yep. He's a guy that will be in play in a lot of scenarios because while he will be paid well, you can still get him at a good price that wouldn't kill you in terms of trying to do some other things. So when it comes to Devontae Adams / Chris Godwin, I would have to go Chris Godwin because he's a little bit more affordable. He's a faster receiver. The only knock on Devontae Adams' game is he doesn't stretch the field in terms of if he gets past you, I see too many people catch him from behind. If Chris Godwin gets behind you, you are not going to catch Chris Godwin from behind. And you need another, you look at the best offenses in the National Football League. Look at the two teams in the Super Bowl in Cincinnati and the Rams. You look at this Rams team, Cooper Kupp, Odell Beckham Jr. Are you kidding me? Then you go to Cincinnati. You're talking about Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins. These are guys that'll blow the top off of defense. Devontae Adams, as good as he is, as spectacular as he is in making the big catches, physical receiver, takes a lot of hits and keeps, he's like that Weeble wobble. You can knock him down, but you can't keep him down. I still have to go with Chris Godwin, who's a phenomenal pass catcher and a great after-the-catch type receiver, more so than a Devontae Adams.
And you think that he makes you think Gallup and he make a full recovery from their ACLs?
Well, why not? Most young receivers, you look at Michael Gallup, what is he, 25, and Chris Godwin is still in his mid-20s, so they'll heal up quick. ACL tears nowadays are nothing for a lot of players in the National Football League. We see players coming back now in 5 months. It used to be an 8 or 9 month rehab. Now some players are coming back in 5 or 6 months, from this injury. So I fully expect both of those guys to be back to full gear by the time training camp rolls around.
That would be awesome. I think you're right with the Chris Godwin. I mean, and there's just no way. There's no way that we're paying Devontae Adams whatever it'll cost to get him here.
Right.
It's not happening. What the heck is going on with Kyler Murray and the Cardinals? What's your read on that? And D Gunn, you have all the info, so whatever you're able to share. What the heck is going on?
I just think, for the last couple of years, when it got down to the latter part of the season, Kyler Murray tries to do too much. And it has cost him in a lot of ways. You look at his interception to touchdown ratio, which is not great, not bad, but it's not great either. And you look at the way he played in that game against the Rams. The Rams just tattooed him, frustrated him, to the point, he just, flipped the ball up in the air and the ball is intercepted to take him back for a touchdown. Yeah. But when you're I don't care how fast you are, when you're a smaller guy, defensive coordinators will find a different way to attack you. And you're starting to see that with more and more teams now who are defending against the Kyler Murray. He will still put you on his highlight reel, but teams are doing better jobs in terms of defending against him. For a guy who's only 5'10", he has an incredibly strong arm. He can go deep. And I think it also hurt them that DeAndre Hopkins was not there when he needed him most. That was a big loss to that team as well. But I just think, when you look at Cliff Kingsbury and the way they ran the offense and the way the team played for the last couple of years, they seem to fade out down the stretch. The last 2 years, that's exactly what happened. Arizona was in the conversation of this is the team you have to watch in the upcoming playoffs. Well, you look at Arizona. What did they lose? 4 of their last 5 to get, to back into the playoffs. And then all of a sudden, they just got tattooed in that first round against the Rams. And so, they've got – you always say you got to learn how to win big games before you actually win those big games. And Arizona is one of those teams that still has to learn how to win the big games. They have the good personnel on both sides of the football, but it's always a defensive mistake in a crucial situation, a missed tackle, a penalty, a drop pass, a Kyler Murray making an ill-advised throw. So these are little things that not just Kyler Murray, but the team as a whole has to learn how to overcome and eliminate if you want to get to the upper echelon in the NFL, especially in the NFC.
Do you? There's been some news that he's like unfollowing them and taking his posts down with Cardinals on there. I mean, what do you think that he's given up on them, or is that just is he trying to send a signal there, or is that just him being him?
And some players, as you look at social media, especially Twitter, there's some players, no matter what you say about them, it's like water off a duck's back. Other players take this stuff personally and want to engage people and defend themselves. And on social media, you can't win that battle. You got a lot of people behind closed doors who just like to be negative people and just like to stir up negative controversy, and you can't get sucked into that. And if Kyler Murray has come to realize that, hey, you know what, I just don't want to be bothered with it. I don't want to hear what people are saying about me negative in TV, in print media, on radio, that I'm just going to separate myself from that. If he's that kind of sensitive person, and I don't know Kyler Murray, I know nothing about him, but if that is the case, if he just doesn't want to hear the noise anymore, more power to him. More players out there, more athletes out there want to be recognized for good and bad reasons on social media, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever the case may be. Some players gravitate towards that stuff. Other players shy away from it. So if he wants to shy away from that, kudos for him for getting off social media.
Yeah. More people might do themselves some good because, like you said, I mean, it's not always healthy. And you hear of young people with the teen suicides and such, and it's a large part due to the fact that you're seeing people's highlight reels. Essentially, that's all people post. People don't post like, "Oh, the scale's too high for me today," or
exactly. Hey, if it wasn't for the fact for what I do, I wouldn't be on social media. I'm not a big social media fan, but I'm on it a lot because of what I do, as you know. But outside of that, when I look at a lot of comments that people make on social media, and especially some of the just degrading things that people say about other people, it's like, why even get involved with this stuff in a lot of cases? But a lot of us who are on social media, especially in the media, we do it for a reason, to generate following, which helps us enhance our numbers across a lot of platforms.
Absolutely. So let's get into the big game coming up in a couple days. You haven't heard about it. Super Bowl coming up. Of course you heard about it.
Super Bowl, what's that?
What? Of course you heard about that. What? Who do you think wins, and what's the score you got?
Well, I've seen the line has dropped a little bit from 4.5 to 4 in favor of the Rams. Of course, the Rams are the visiting team in this game, even though they're playing it right in their backyard. I think the Rams will cover here. I think the Rams will build a lead early. The thing that scares me, though, is if you look at the last two games Cincinnati played to get here against Tennessee and against Kansas City, they fell behind by double-digit scores. And when you're thinking Cincinnati's down and out, all of a sudden, like Freddy Krueger or Jason, they rise from the ashes and deliver a knockout blow. And so I think Cincinnati is going to be a little bit overwhelmed early on by the big stage. I think the Rams are going to be in a little bit more of a comfort zone. I think the Rams have a better defense compared to Cincinnati's offensive line. You look at how Tennessee tattooed Joe Burrow. They officially sacked him 9 times, but he was hit over 20 times. But yet that same porous offensive line came back and played a much better game against Kansas City in Kansas City. And Joe Burrow was a lot cleaner and had a lot more time to throw in that game. I don't know which Cincinnati offensive line is going to show up against a ferocious Rams defensive front seven. But if Von Miller and those guys and Aaron Donald get to Joe Burrow, it's going to be a long day for the Cincinnati Bengals. But I expect it to be an entertaining game. I think this could be one of those, the over-under right now is 48.5. If I was a betting man, I would pick the under because Cincinnati has a way of keeping the games a little bit lower scoring. I would love to see a 40-35 shootout with the team getting the ball. The last team with the ball having a chance to win the game. But I'm going to take the Rams because I think they have the better overall personnel on both sides of the football to get the job done. I don't think anybody can stop Cooper Kupp at this point of his career. No matter how many times they try to double and triple team this guy, he finds a way to get open. The guy had 25 catches in 3 playoff games this year for over 345 yards. He had 145 catches in a regular season, had the second or third most receiving yards in the history of the NFL, 1,900 plus receiving yards. The only way you stop Cooper Kupp is if he gets injured in this game. And I think Cooper Kupp will free up Odell Beckham to do a lot of different things. I think the Rams get the trophy this time.
I think we have I've grown. I started off thinking about this game, thinking that the Bengals were going to get blown out, and I've moved way in the other direction, even to the point where I thought that maybe Cincinnati was going to win. But for the reason what you just said is that they haven't been here before, and they're not going to be able to contain that pass rush. I do think Jamar Chase is going to have a big week, though.
I agree.
I think because of the egos on the Rams, they're going to make a crucial mistake in allowing Jalen Ramsey, who is the best corner in the league, but the offensive player knows where he's going. So if you got a great receiver and a great corner at this point, the receiver's going to win. So I think early on they're going to make a crucial mistake in letting Jalen Ramsey's ego force them to go one-on-one with Jamar Chase. I think they both start off relatively slow, and then we get a bit of a shootout to end the season.
Joe Burrow showed me a lot. I got a lot of respect for Joe Burrow after the beating he took in Tennessee, and he just kept coming back. And I do think the Rams front is going to get their hits on Joe Burrow, but Joe Burrow's not going to quit by any stretch of the imagination. And because these guys, Joe Burrow's like the Pied Piper of Cincinnati. These guys thoroughly believe in him. And I think Joe Burrow is going to stand tall in the pocket. He's going to take his shots, and he's going to make some big throws and get Cincinnati back in this game. I just hope it's an entertaining game.
Absolutely. Who you got for Super Bowl MVP?
Wow. Matthew Stafford, I'm leaning towards right now. I got a feeling it could be somebody else, like a Cooper Kupp, like an Odell Beckham. But I'm going to go with Matthew Stafford. He still worries me a little bit. Both quarterbacks in this game, as well as they can play, they are both capable of serving up interceptions at any given moment. I expect both of them to throw at least one interception, but I expect Matthew Stafford to rise above the rest and capture the MVP trophy.
I'm leaning towards Aaron Donald. I think he wants to be, as like you said, we don't know what offensive line from Cincinnati we're going to see. And if we see that Tennessee offensive line, we may be looking at Aaron Donald with 4 or 5 sacks.
It could be the case. Yep, you're right about that.
So I'm going Aaron Donald, probably number 2 Matt Stafford, because it's a quarterback-driven league.
Yep.
And if it's a tie, they're going to give it to the quarterback.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more.
So, D-Gun, thank you so much for coming on, man. Please tell the people where we can follow along and show you some support and all that.
Hey, check me out on Gun on One, my own podcast, my own weekly podcast. I have some great guests on there. From people like, Brian Dawkins, who's a Hall of Famer, to Donovan McNair, Brian Westbrook, Chris Long, my boy DJ Jazzy Jeff, Joe Lenardi, who is the bracketologist of college basketball. I've had Jay Wright on there. I've known the Villanova basketball coach. I've had a great array of guests and will continue to do so. So the Gun on One platform continues to grow. Hope you guys download the podcast and listen in. I think you'll be entertained by what we talk about each and every week.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, D-Gun. We'd love to have you back. Thank you.
Oh, you're more than welcome. Yeah, thanks for having me on.